Hi everyone, this evening I am playing Guilford Courthouse. This is one of the great battles of the American Revolution, games from GMT. This is actually the version that comes in the tri-pack, so you get three, well you get four really. You get three of the sort of earlier games in the series. It's a series I like and enjoy a lot. This particular scenario, we'll call it, or game, it's 13 turns, and the Continentals and the American militia, etc., are set up on the board already, and the British arrive sort of down this sort of area here, make their way across the map. If you're playing this is the full scenario, so the full 13 turns. You can also play a shorter version where the British start in this area sort of here, and they have to make their way across this field against the defenders there, and then make their way over to this sort of side of the map. If I move around the camera, it might help. And then make their way off the board, that sort of area there as I'm looking at the camera. So basically off that way there. Doesn't take a huge amount of time to play. What I'll do is, as I play every turn, I will just give a quick sort of summary of what happened in the turn. That's the way I like to make these sort of videos and play my games. As you can see, it's not a huge amount of counters in this particular battle. It's not a game of huge stacks or anything like that. The British, as I said, they don't actually start this particular battle on the board. They're sort of over there on the turn record track. I put them there, and Cornwallis and the vast majority of the British forces are arriving in turn 4. So the first 4 or 5 turns normally it's mostly about bringing the troops on. There's a little bit of sort of skirmish action this side of the board. The map looks great. I really like the map. And I think I've played this particular battle now 8 times, I guess, something like that. I normally play the shorter historical battle, which is much shorter, but normally quite decisive. But I thought this evening I'd start to the full 13 turn version of the game. Doesn't take a huge amount of time to play, normally a few hours, but I'll probably play slower because I'll stop and sort of explain what happened. But yeah, a series that I very much like, so I'm going to get into it. So I've just done the first couple of turns, nothing too much really, because it's just been bringing on some British forces here. They're moving up Salisbury Road, and Lee's Legion have moved into a defensive position here, just this side of a creek, and are going to hold that position while the British, which are Jaegers, Hessian Jaegers and light infantry, they will try and push Lee's Legion back. Interestingly, I've just finished reading a book about the Hessian Jaegers and the British light infantry, so it's quite fitting. The Jaegers are armed with, in this game, are armed with rifles, which is quite an interesting mechanic how they do that. And they get a first fire benefit the first time you use them in the game. The light infantry don't have those. Definitely in this historical period, the light infantry were kind of more skirmishy, or could be used in skirmish, as well as using standard. But it's quite interesting reading about the light infantry. So anyway, yeah. So in the next turn, we'll see how that pans out. So we've just resolved the combat, and we had these British light and Hessians against Lee's Legion across the creek. the result, as you can see from the marker, was a pin marker, and that was the only thing that really happened in turn 3. Webster has been able to enter the map, along with some more Hessians and some Royal Welsh Fusiliers. They're quite good units, and they have a leader now. To be honest with you, I took a bit of a gamble to sort of push my luck a little bit with the light infantry and Hessians trying to take that creek and push up into the New Garden Road there. Didn't quite pay off, as is the nature of these type of games. What it will mean is the next phase for the Americans, we'll call them. I'll just have to double check what decisions they can make when under pin, but I know they will probably just have to fight back. So that could be quite interesting to see what happens as a result of that. I will just double check that in the rules though. Yeah, I just thought I had got from a British point of view, I thought these would just push their luck against those, but not to be. They're in a good defensive position. That's why I moved them there. So that would make a better situation thematically for the narrative. But to be honest, the long and short of it is the British troops have forces with the Hessians have got to make quick progress up this road. This game for me hinges a lot about making. It's not the only game that does this by any stretch of the imagination. Good, quick, aggressive progress to be able to stand any chance of getting to the objective in time. So we've just done turn number 3, and the British have been able to push back Lee's Legion here. So a retreat for the Legion of Foot and a disruption for the horse counter there. And in doing so, they've been able to move their light infantry and the Jaegers over this creek here. They've also been able to bring in the British troops. Cornwallis and his stack is just off camera there, but they've started to bring those in on this road here. So the British need to make headway now up this road to the crossroads here, and just at the top of the board, you can't quite see it. And the loyalists, the Americans, sorry, not loyalists, the patriots are going to try and slow them down as much as possible, just really biding their time, just slowing them down before they start to get towards the top of the map. So we've just done turn number 5, and the British have been able to capture Lee's Legion of Foot in this sort of area. They were able to push back, and the Lee's Legion of Horse actually shattered that counter there, but they were able to rally back in their phase. So the British are making some headway on this side of the map here. There's always a temptation for these lead units just to keep pushing and pushing and pushing. But what can happen is that push too far without support is they can sort of create a bit of a block. And I think a future turn fairly soonish, we're going to need to collect and organise these troops here as they move up towards the top of the map, especially when they're going to go across the open field. And then the Patriots are just going to try and hold on, just try and stop them from making progress, hinder that progress, so that they don't simply, hinder enough so they run out of time. But we'll see. So we've just finished turn number 6, and I just pulled the camera out a little bit just to give you some context of where we are in the game. The British forces here, they've been able to push Lee's units and capture them, eliminate them, whatever. They are now going to be moving up to the crossroads, and there are some Patriot units here, including some rifle, 2 units of rifle there, and we've got some horse here. And they need to move quickly along this road, get into position over this area here, ready to move across this open ground and engage these units here, push those back, and then we're up to the Guilford Courthouse, which is just off camera over this area, and then move off the board to gain as much victory as possible. The Patriots are just going to hold them, slow them down, and actually already they've not done too bad a job. This is the full scenario that I'm playing. There's this historical scenario where you actually start the scenario or battle, scenario version of the battle with Cornwallis and all of his troops already in position over here. From memory, that starts at turn 8, and we're now just finished turn 6. So for if we can get all the British into that same position by the end of turn 8, then we're on the same level footing, as it were, of that historical scenario. I think the British are one turn behind, but from memory, and I will check, this scenario is a full 13 turn. Historical scenario is only 12 turns, so be interesting to see. Certainly looks like the British made good progress so far, and the Patriot Army has taken a knock to its morale with losing troops already. But as we will find out, when the British get to this area here and have to start moving across here, they will take some significant losses and be slowed down. And this is kind of the pivotal area of the battle that we'll get to in a couple of turns. We've just done turns 7 and 8. The British have been able to engage with these units of foot and horse, including the Marquis. They were able to inflict a step loss. I moved some of the British off the road, the Jaegers and the light infantry, allowing Webster and his forces to engage those into combat. And even though the British were able to inflict a step loss, they didn't retreat out of the hex. So in the rules, the idea being that Campbell's counter here would be giving covering fire, or just using screening fire, whatever, to hide the this horse unit retreating off. This has caused a problem for the British in that it's now going to hold them up. And as I said earlier, this particular scenario, at this point in the scenario, holding the British up is, even though the British have inflicted step loss, it's quite favourable for the Patriots. The army morale is definitely lower for the Patriots compared to the British. So they've taken a little bit of a hit, but not too much to worry about yet. So yeah, they're holding them up. So we'll see how the next couple of turns go. The British need to quickly remove this obstacle to stand any chance of being able to get any level of victory. So the British have been able to move these units out here and open the road. They eliminated the Marquis unit the other turn. They captured one of the units of foot, and they disrupted the other unit there. So they've been able to open that road, which is great for them. And as you can see the map now, so at the end of turn 8, the road is open to get into position here, ready to assault across this field and tackle these units head on here. Now what I'm going to do, because I'm playing the game solo and I'm playing for the narrative, I have decided that the British, flush with some early victories, have become overconfident and are actually going to push forward with these forward units here. I think if you were playing maybe what the British should be doing, and this is an interesting situation in the scenario, what the British should be doing, one could argue, is waiting in this area to bring up every unit and then get into the best position possible an assault then. But I have decided, flush with victory, early victories in the game, that they are not going to do that. And they're going to push forward, and it'll be interesting to see how that pans out in the sort of narrative of the scenario that we're going to play. So, yeah, see how that works out. So we've done a couple more turns, and we've got the British into position now. The British have also been able to capture some of the artillery as well. So into position, ready for the next turn, and that's going to be turn number 11. So we've only got 3 turns left of the game. From experience, I think it's going to be incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to push all these units here, for the American units here, out into this sort of area where, just using this map as a sort of historical reference, this is where the sort of the British became out through the trees here, and then were engaged by these units here. That might happen, we'll see. So it's going to be a question of what casualties both sides can inflict upon each other in this very sort of concentrated maelstrom, I'll call it, of combat. It is reflective of the history. It's a particularly vicious and bloody encounter here. The British lost a lot of losses, and again, historically, technically, British consider this a victory. And reading the history, I'm not convinced it was really. It was a victory at a huge cost. Certainly, a very significant cost. So we'll roll the dice and we'll see how things pan out in this combat here. But yeah, really into position. So we'll see how that shakes down. I think I'll probably call that an evening for this evening, and I'll pick up tomorrow evening and we'll do those last few turns and see how this pans out. So we've just done another turn, and some very fierce fighting as you would expect in this area here. The British have made a little bit of headway, but they have taken a step loss, and they've got a couple of units disrupted to the left there. The American Patriots been able to hold on quite well, being pushed back, but not as much as the British may have liked to have done, and they're doing a sterling job. The Americans just holding on to this sort of forest area here, just repelling some of the British backwards. So yeah, that's the end of that. That's the end of that turn. So turn 12 next. So we've done another turn, and we're going to call the game there. It ended on turn 12. Basically, the British just couldn't push through, and in fact, we're getting pushed back by the Patriots. The British had some units captured, and some units retreating in the face of just heavy musketry along this forest line, this tree line here, and they just couldn't contend with it, couldn't push through and break through. And because it's almost the last turn, there's just no way the British were anywhere near the Guilford Courthouse, which is in sort of top right, it's just off camera. So for me, I'm not going to count the victory points or anything like that. For me, narratively wise, a defeat, clear defeat for the British. Interestingly, what was happening here was these British were sort of pushing forwards, but just the rest of the British army here just not being able to keep up, and were being pushed back. And there's absolutely no way that they would carry on their own up the along this road here to the Guilford Courthouse area. This definitely would have been with Cornwallis, his unit being pushed back. We've got units here and disrupted, just basically narratively wise, just being pushed back, taking losses. They would have. Cornwallis would have definitely, I think, no question about it, would have called it a day, and that would be a defeat. As we spoke about a few times in the video, historically this was considered to the British a victory, albeit at a huge cost. I'm not entirely sure I would have classed it from a historical point of view as a victory. It's a fun scenario. I've played it quite a few times now. The Guilford Courthouse scenario. It plays pretty quick. I've played this done this video over a couple of evenings. It's not, it plays pretty quick, quite pacey. There's quite a lot of narrative things happening, which I enjoy. I just had a quick look through my small library on this subject matter. The only book I've got specifically about it, but let's put it on camera there, is the Guilford Courthouse, published by Osprey Publishing. I remember reading this and I remember liking it, so there is some historical literature. I don't recall anything too much on YouTube. There may be some videos on YouTube giving some more information, and as always I enjoy reading about the history as much as playing the games. It helps me understand the narrative of the battle better, which I very much enjoy. Yeah, fun scenario. I do like this game system. I am quite a enthusiast, I would say, of the period and the battles. Find them fascinating. So yeah, like I said, overall, definitely a British defeat. Interestingly, I think at the beginning of the game, the British were making quite good headway, and then just couldn't pass this tree line, these open fields and these tree lines, and just the sheer, and even though they were militia, just the sheer volume of them just couldn't break through that. And then they would have faced, you can't see it off camera, but where the Guilford Courthouse is, we've got Green and his troops, and there's some cannon there as well. They just wouldn't have been able to have broke through in the time that they had. Time was very much against them in this game. So historically quite interesting from a historical point of view. Very narratively rich experience and game. So yeah, really enjoyed that. Thanks a lot for watching as ever, and yeah, take care. Thank you.